Okay, this is me coloring Bloody Knuckles. If you watch my videos, I talked about the three stories in the volume series. You can call it an anthology series. Me, it's a testing ground, an experiment, because I'm always doing multiple titles, and I just wanted to see how people would respond to the different titles, and so I put three titles in one book. I did a chapter for each volume, and then I, release it on Amazon. It was originally called the Black Book, kind of to mirror the aesthetic of a Black Sketchbook. But Amazon wouldn't let me call it the Black Book because they had another book on there by James Patterson called the Black Book. Now that's not an infringement on the titling technically, legally, because when you're in a different space and prose, those books aren't in the same space as comic books or graphic novels. So you can legally use similar titles. But if you're in the same space and use a similar title, then that person can battle you legally for the right to use the name. And so you gotta be real careful with the names. Always have alternative names that you love, that you can just for the case of like maybe you go to a publisher, or you get lucky enough to get approached by an animation or a movie studio or even a game studio. They might test the name might not work. So always have a name that you feel like works just as good, because sometimes we come up with a name that we love, like, oh, like, and this is it. And so I have alternative names. Like, one of my rules is everything is subject to change. And so you got to be comfortable with change. But the change really has to, what's the word I'm looking for? It has to enhance, it has to expand. You don't change to literally completely change to do a 180. Sometimes that's okay. But once you got a solid story, and let's say you're going into a different medium, you're looking for enhancements. You're looking for expansion. Okay, what do we need to add to flesh this out further, to go deeper? You know, don't do a crazy change that turns it into something else. So many times people give their books or their IPs to major studios, video game studios. Actually, video games do a good job of honoring source material. I don't know of many games that just completely bastardize the source material, but the movie and TV industry, and even the animation industry, sometimes just destroy the original. What's the word I'm looking for? The original intent. Sometimes it's so bad it's just not at all the thing that they even acquired. So it's like it's crazy when you see like the title of your favorite comic or whatever become a movie, and you watch the movie and it's not that at all. It's basically they just took the title card, and the characters are so different, the world is so different, they changed so much. It's like they might as well just made up an original work, because that's exactly what they did. They changed it so much it's not even recognizable. It's completely something different, and that's crazy. And I never and he never finished. I'm getting into LaShawn Thomas. I don't know who still knows LaShawn Thomas. I do. I'm a huge fan. I love his work. But if people heard of the anime on Netflix, Cannon Busters, he's going to make a graphic novel. He was going to draw this before he got back into animation. Because he did a little stint into comics. And he worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Then he did Arcanium. And then he was primed to like do his own graphic novel, and he just started putting out pages for Cannon Busters, and it was the most beautiful thing anyone has ever seen. Like, and the way he drew it, his character designs, the way he cut, everything he did to it, it just had this unique presentation. The art was phenomenal, the style, the movement, it was amazing. But then he got back into animation and then ended up turning into an anime, and then they stripped all of him out of it. And he just made it, not only did they strip all of him out of it, they really, even though they kept the color tones on the characters, like these are characters of color, like they took the black features out of it. And then it's kind of like, what happened to this? They just destroyed it. And it's like, I don't know if it's good or not. A lot of people say Cannon Busters is okay. From what I seen, from what he was doing in the graphic novel, when I got to what they produced in the anime, and I know he was heavily involved, and like I said, you know, everything's subject to change, but the changes that they made is they just bastardized his work, and I don't think it's too late. I would, if I don't know what he's up to or what he's doing, but I know a lot of people are. We got this giant fan base that's hung up on Battle Chasers by Joe Madureira, and everybody wants to see Joe return to keep working on Battle Chasers. And I don't think he would have to do it forever, but I feel like even if he came back and did like a 2-year run, and I wouldn't even, or even just came up with like, so we talked about, if you watch my video, how to save the comic book industry, I talked about how how a trade paperback is made up. You know, you get 5 or 6 issues, floppies, and it's like 22 to 32 pages. You get 5 of those, you put them together, and you got your trade. So if I was Joe Madureira, I wouldn't produce floppies. I'll just take a year and just do a graphic novel, however long that takes. And you could do it in your spare time. You'll be surprised if you give yourself a year and you talking about, so 20 pages times 5, that's 100 pages. So you're talking about 100 pages of story in a year, and then you release it. Take a year to make it, and then release it the next year. And then you get into the flow of that. Every year you release a Battle Chasers. I feel like in 2-3 years he could probably complete the story or get to a solid arc where he would be satisfied, and then you won't have that work just floating around incomplete. And I would, but just like people are waiting and dying for Joe to return to Battle Chasers, I don't know who else, but me personally, I would love for LaShawn Thomas to, I don't know what he's got going on. I know he's working in animation, and he's working in real animation. He's over there in Korea, in Japan, working with the big dogs. And so, man, if one day, if he just came back, even if, because I don't know if he still has the original works of those pages he did, but man, if he could come back and start working on those, and like just pick up where he left off and show us the original concept, give us the original flavor, the original art style, bring that black back into Cannon Busters, and just at least give us a good arc. At least give us one good graphic novel, one good trade of Cannon Busters, that would be phenomenal. Please go on Pinterest. Go on, I don't know where you're gonna go. Just go on Google and Google Cannon Busters, and the anime is gonna pop up. Google LaShawn Thomas Cannon Busters, but find those original pages, and man, I swear to God, you're gonna be like, "What is this?" You're gonna be like, "How did they get this out of that?" Like, ain't no way they bastardized this man's work like that. I mean, he was there. I mean, I don't know. I guess he was willing to compromise. I mean, it's a great opportunity to get your anime made on that level. I mean, sometimes you gotta. I don't know. I don't know the story. I never heard any interviews about it or how he feels about it or what actually happened. Maybe he was satisfied with it. Maybe he thought it was cool. Maybe he thought it was a better look. I don't know. I don't know. But from what I saw, from my personal opinion, the original work he did in the Cannon Busters comic book he was developing, because he produced a lot of artwork for it. The characters look way different. Philly the Kid, his costume design was way different. He looked way cooler, and it was more stylized, and it was different. It was a different style. It wasn't an anime manga style. It was just like something you never seen before. It was kind of like an animation style looking. It didn't look like super gritty American comic like. It didn't look too indie comic like. But he found this good medium between just an anime style, American comic indie style. What he did was phenomenal. And I think like people, because at this time when he was making this, a lot of eyes were on him. He was really up and coming in the comic book world because he's working in animation before, and he ended up falling back into comics, just doing work for comics. And I think that work that he was producing with working on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, doing Arcanium. I think he did a couple other things. He did some work for Udon. It's a publisher. They produce Street Fighter content, comics on the American side. I think they're still operating too, but I think that really got him seen and noticed. And then once he got his foot back in the door, animation, he's just like, fuck it. Animation pays. Comics don't. I get why these guys, why Joe Madureira and LaShawn Thomas opted out of comics, because it's like comics don't. I guess there are guys making good money off comics. It's a lot of hustling, but I guess if you could get that animation gig, or Joe Madureira, he went into games, producing art for games. It's more of a solid gig. And then both of them, I think, have independent studios too in those fields. So it's like it's more of a solid gig. You're not worried where your next meal is going to come from, and it's more money. So you can't blame them for stepping into those fields and staying in those fields. But man, would it be awesome? Would it be beautiful if both those guys would just come back? Do it in your spare time. You guys got spare time? Come on. Look what I'm doing in my spare time. I'm producing. Not only am I working on these 3 separate titles, and I'm doing all the lettering, the color, and everything, I got 2 regular jobs. A full-time job and a part-time job. Hold on. This is what I usually do. Take the black off because I can't see the letters. Where am I at? Okay, I'm here. Get this oval shape. So yeah, I got a full-time job, a part-time job, and I'm producing mad comics in my spare time. So come on, fellas. Y'all too comfortable. Even Joe admitted in recent interviews that he don't draw as much as he used to because when you move into that higher position, I don't know what LaShawn Thomas is doing, but I know Joe is he's more of the art director. So when you're in that higher position, you're doing less drawing because you're just managing other artists and you're kind of like managing the look and the feel of the overall art for the project. And so you might do some drawing to lead the crew into the direction you want because you can't be because you have to kind of like surrender a bit in that leadership position. You can't be this mad dictator and say everybody has to draw like me. It looks like me, but you get to lead in the direction, and it's not just up to you. It's the whole. I guess everybody, the leadership, come together and y'all make a decision before you even get to work and say, okay, what are we going for? What is it going to look like? Is it going to be more realistic? Is it going to be cartoony? What's our house style? Like, do we have a house style for our studio? Is this, is a certain look we're always going for? And once that decision is made, then the art director, make sure all the artists stay focused on that decision. And so you decide as a group, and then that's when leadership comes in, and he has to steer the ship. So, but because you're steering the ship, you're not doing that much drawing. The crew is doing most of the drawing. You might do some drawing to keep them focused, to show them, okay, it's more like this and more like that. Or you might do drawing and teaching moments, because usually if you're the art director, you're the person with more experience. And, you could show guys, no, do it like this, do it like that, try this, try that, but you got some free time, man. Throw away to your Netflix subscription. We don't need you watching Netflix. Ain't nothing good on there no more. Forget them shows. Make your own show. Give us Battle Chasers. Give us Cannon Busters. Those names there's a similarity to those names. Battle Chasers, Cannon Busters. LaShawn Thomas is not going to tell me he wasn't inspired by Battle Chasers. And both of those stories are in like those kind of fantasy worlds. And so, and both the main protagonists in each story is a little girl. So, that's way too big. That's way too small. Sometimes it's tricky. Sometimes it just fits. Now I'll put the blacks back on. Booyah. Okay. And then I go in like this. I don't know. Like, I was testing what to do with word bubbles. And then in the black and white, I got the normal word bubbles. You just saw me erase it. When it's outline and a black line, and then you got that little arrow pointing to who's speaking. But when I started doing the color, I did some coloring for like something I put on Webtoons. And when I did it on Webtoons, I did it like this. I just put this all white bubble in there. And then I kind of like did that. Oh, that's not even her talking. But, and I liked it. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to try this in the actual book. And sometimes I feel like it would have saved me a lot of time if I would have just left it like it was. But sometimes you make a decision and you gotta stick with it. You know, can't keep flipping and flopping. But like I said, I like the way this looks. I really enjoy how it looks. So I'm gonna stick to it. And that's another thing with Medibang. The only thing they don't have, or maybe I haven't figured it out, because you know a lot of stuff was easy to learn here, but it's a lot of stuff I didn't bother to learn. So I know it probably does a lot more than what I know. But I just figured out what I needed, how I figured it out. And so when it comes to making word balloons and you know the little arrow from the balloon to the character, I'm getting this kind of like I'm doing a lot of this sort of by hand, sort of like I even experimented with drawing a balloon myself. It was too wonky, but there's a tool on here. You could put it's like a oval kind of shape, and you could shape it in a circle. You can see you could kind of shape it however you need, just by stretching it. You don't have full control to manipulate the shape like that. And it's an oval. It's a square shape, and it's a how many sides? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a hectagon of 6 sides. So it's that whatever that shape is. Oh, but almost like the pentagon. Is that a pentagon? How many? I don't know. I'm sounding stupid right now, but it's those 3 shapes, and you could just stretch those shapes how you need them. So I just use the oval. Sometimes I use the rectangle. You know, if you're doing some narration or something like that. But and I just gotta do it like this. It's pretty cool. I like how it's turning out. I can't wait to see it because I store it in Google Docs, and then I go through Google Docs and see what I got loaded up. And right now I just finished the coloring for all the way through chapter 3. So chapter 4, as you can see, if you've been following my page, my YouTube page, you'll see that I'm currently working on chapter 4 with Drunken Ronin Bear and Chain Gun. And so I'll get done when I get done, but as I get it done, I'll be pressing through with it. Okay. And then, let me see, is that right? Your essence, and then went through the trials, so she must graduate, drafted. Only then can you enter the tournament. Get my second shot at Bianca. But if Tyreek rejects me, Jar will draft you. Look, I'm reading it. Read it. What? Drafting? Tournament? What's going on? This is my love letters to Street Fighter. Also, like my weird commentary on like gang culture. And on the surface, it looks very stylized. It looks like I'm honoring it, and I'm not bashing it either. But if you look closely, I'm just shining the light on certain things, and I don't have answers. It's really just asking questions. And so on the surface, it's just a flashy story of the dystopian future where people live in a literal concrete jungle, and they're fighting for supremacy. But behind it, there's this exploration of black folks and tribalism and gang culture, and just really just like separating into groups and fighting for power when a greater threat is looming overhead, and they just don't want to see it. They too busy worrying about who in charge right here on this block or that block. And it's like, it's a world outside the blocks. And so we need to figure out how we going to survive in that world, or we won't make it. And that's kind of like the crux of the story. So, but it really follows Sasha, the young lady with the afro in the blue, Sasha King. She's coming to avenge her father, who was murdered in a tournament. They have a tournament to decide leadership. You are allowed to murder people in this tournament, but she wants revenge. She's been exiled, and she's come back. She's a little girl. She was exiled after her father died. She went and got trained up by her grandfather. Against his wishes, returned to the circle, as this place is called. It's a big city with 8 blocks in it. The blocks are neighborhoods that are walled off by giant walls. And so these walls, back when civilization was at the brink, they built these walls to contain the people in the neighborhoods. These were the neighborhoods that they would thought, oh, they were too violent, they were too crazy, too many gangs, and so they built walls to close people in. And then they nicknamed these areas the blocks. So it's 8 blocks. But then these neighborhood cages turned into like fortresses for these gangs. So then when civilization collapsed, these gang leaders just rose to power and just they ruled like kings in their blocks and started calling themselves kings. So over time, they created this system, and it's called the Circle of Kings. And so they need a king of kings, somebody who rules the whole city, and they decide through a tournament. Either the king himself or a representative of the king enters the tournament, and whoever wins, they rule only for 2 years. I wanted to make it 5 years, but then I want to have a lot of tournaments going over time. Like they're always fighting. I don't want it to get too stable. And then it means something if the same person is winning for a decade straight. So this person won 5 tournaments. And so you probably fought hundreds of people in that time, not to mention the fights you're having outside of the tournament to maintain dominance, to, assert pressure, to keep your rule intact. But then the tournament comes, and then you're squabbling with a lot of people. Because I'm trying to make it where you could probably enter 3 people from each side in the tournament. And so that's a lot of people. I got to do the math 8 times. Look, I'm not good at math. And only one of those people has to come out on top. And actually, your people will end up fighting each other. Only one of those people can win the tournament. So, like, 2 of your people make it to the end. They got to squabble, And I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the tournament. I haven't devised that. I'm still working out the tournament part. But, yeah, that's where we're at. So, let me close this. I'm done with this page. Save and leave. Bop, 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 bop. And look, here's some behind the scenes stuff. What is this? Close this. I don't need that. Hey, Matty Bang, I ain't forget about you. I need that sponsorship, son. I'll come to Japan, bro. I'll hop on the plane. I'll be low key. I'll catch a boat ride, bro. Nah, Ain't no Negro. I ain't getting on no boat. No Negroes ain't getting on no boat. That's a lie. Bros be taking cruises and stuff now. I don't trust it. I ain't getting on that water. But look, we got, you see the black and white. That's me working on Drunken Ronin Bear. You see the color. That's Bloody Knuckles. You know, and I got a lot of Bloody Knuckles colored right here. You see with this hat right here. That's some shading I did for Volume 4 Chain Gun. I got some webtoons mixed in here. So I got, quite a bit going on. This, you see it look like Wonder Woman. I just did that for fun. Sometimes I do it for practice. I ink other artists' work. So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna show you this. So this is me kind of roughing out the issue or the chapter. So this is chapter 4 of Drunken Ronin Bear. We got kind of like a makeshift cover, and we get into the action. I don't know what you guys can see out of this, but it's the sneak preview. You know, it's the pages. This is nothing but action all the way through. And it's been a long time since I've done this, since I've drawn a comic when every page is fighting. Like, what page is not fighting? Okay, they're running away from a fight right here. So that's technically still fighting. And they get instantly caught up on. So, but right here, this is the only still page where they're having a small dialogue. They don't have time for anything else. And he's like, okay, I'll hold off these ninjas as you get to the goat. Okay? And so you can see him, he's running away in the background and he's turning to face all the ninjas. I don't know if you can see this. I can see it. I can see it clearly. What was amazing to me, my son at 4 years old, I was doing this. And he walked up on me and he looked at it. He's like, "What you doing, Dad?" And I told him, like, I'm working on the book, you know. I'm just getting the ideas. And he looked at it and he could see it. He saw it clearly. He's like, "Oh, that's cool, and this is happening there." I'm like, "You can see this?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, my son got the eye." Because I know adults who can't see it. They look at it and they just see scribble and they see scratch and that's fine, you know. There are some people who can't even see drawings. You could show them a painting of a beautiful paint. You could show them Mona Lisa, and for some reason their brain can't process it, and they just see a bunch of paint slapped. They like, it's just paint. What is it? What am I looking at? I don't know if that's some kind of disorder or something like that, but that exists in the world. Especially when you're doing line work. If you're drawing something, especially if it's sketchy, you show it to somebody and they can't see it. You know, you really do have to train the eye. And so for him to just look at it like that, that was amazing because I had to train my eye. Even though I could see stuff from a young age too, but also I didn't have a lot of experience with a lot of just rough art like that. I was just watching cartoons and stuff like that and reading books. I didn't even get into comic books until I was 11. But blah 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 blah. Because you can see right here, it got the black line around it. But I'm erasing it. And I'm gonna just make it all white. You know, I gotta make sure I thoroughly erase. I could just like take off that layer and put on another layer and that would solve my problems. And even with coloring, I could use the drop bucket tool and just drop colors in and then, you know, fill in the gaps. But I like the experience of physically erasing, physically coloring. Sometimes I still drop something in here and there. That's when I'm getting lazy and I'm so close to finishing and I'm like, here, just drop, bang, bang. But there's something about this experience about physically going in there with my own hand and just scraping everything out. And it's messy. Sometimes I miss little spots. And then I gotta go in there and touch it up, and that's fine. That's part of the experience. I don't mind that whatsoever. So right here, when I erase some of it, now you can't see the lettering because of, you know, her afro is all black. So I go in and I take away the inks, and now it's visible. And now you see where I missed with some of the erasing up here. So I'll take care of that. Take care of this. Take care of this. If you're a beginner and you want to jump into comics, follow me. I'll give all my tips and tricks. Get Medibang. It's the easiest thing to use. And you can get, as you can see, you can produce a decent quality of work. You know, this is just as good as anything somebody's making on Photoshop or Clip Studio. And it is a subscription now. It didn't used to be. You used to pay $10 and you just have it. Now you got to pay like $2.99. So it's cheaper than both of those. It's not the $20. So it's cheap, and it's still free, but it's with ads. So you can use Medibang for free with ads. But here's the cheat: if you turn off your Wi-Fi on your device, the ads can't run. So how it works is like I'm working on this. Once I close this window and go back into my library, my gallery, I will be forced to watch an ad. An ad will pop up like boom. And it's usually like some mobile game or something like that. Or some like weird anime looking stuff. You know. Which is unfortunate. You're in public drawing, you press the button, go to an ad, and then some sexy anime stuff come up. Somebody over your shoulder like, bro, what are you looking at? Like, it's not my fault, you know. But if you turn off the Wi-Fi, don't connect to the internet, and I would suggest if you got an iPad, and this is connected to the internet right now, but if you're working from an iPad, and you doing all your artwork on the iPad, don't browse the internet on that iPad, and it will last longer. Okay, like I go on Pinterest on here sometimes, and sometimes I do YouTube, but that's rare that I ever do that. I do most of my browsing on my phone or on my laptop. I do not really go on the internet on this iPad, and this iPad has lasted me 3 years. Not only has it lasted 3 years, I bought it off Craigslist. It was used. So this is a first generation iPad, original from the time when the first generations were put out. And somebody had it and they barely used it. They got it for school. And they had it all this time. It was a decent condition. They sold it to me for $250. I bought it. It came with the pencil. I still had to buy a new pencil. Their pencil was wrecked. And that was 3 years ago. And this is bad boy still. It's a little glitchy, so I need to start moving stuff over to the cloud and probably get a new one coming pretty soon. I need to start doing that because when it finally gives out on me, if I don't have my stuff moved over, that's going to ruin my life. I don't know what I'm going to do. I was going to say something. I'm not going to say that on here because it might get me in trouble. But, yeah, so this is Bloody Knuckles full color. I'm going to show some more of this as I go along, as I focus on. First, I'm going to put out Volume 4. I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to show that. I'm going to do some making of Volume 4. And after I'm done doing the lines for Drunken Ronin Bear, then the Making Volume 4 videos will probably focus on the shading and some of the lettering, so you'll get some bits of the story. But then after that, I'm going to get back to coloring, because I'm going to take a break before I hit Volume 5. But I'm going to still be working. That's when I'm going to probably really get into the webtoons and coloring Bloody Knuckles. And I might start coloring. I'm going to go back to chapters 1 of Chain Gun and Drunken Ronin Bear and start getting the colors ready on that. But I don't plan to have them all colored, but I'm trying to get Bloody Knuckles done for the summer. So I'm not going to take too much of a break from when I jump into Volume 5. And so, but I might finish chapter 5 of Bloody Knuckles first, and hurry up and get it colored, so I can release Bloody Knuckles in the summer. Even though Volume 5 should come before Bloody Knuckles, I mean, that makes sense, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right. So this is me, the Mad King, signing off. Thanks for everybody that's supporting the channel. I'm loving all the views, the love, the comments, the questions. Please ask questions if you want to know how to do something. I know my art is very simple and cartoony, but despite that, believe me when I say, like, especially when it comes to pencils, I'm a master artist, so you need some tips and tricks. Just ask a question, I'll answer directly. If we're engaging and you ask something that need a video, I wouldn't mind. Like, I'm not gonna make a tutorial series, but I don't mind, like, if people have specific questions and you need a specific answer, I don't mind doing like a quick tutorial video based on what people are asking for. So feel free to ask, like, hey, how do you do that? If I can't explain it in the comments like that, I'll post a video and probably link, share it with you or tag you in it so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. All right. Medi Bang, holla at your boy. I'm on your backs, man. I'm not going away. I'm not going away. All right. I'm like that guy outside the store, like, for a fee, I'll protect you. It's dangerous out here in this American independent comic space, Medi Bang. And I see, like, Clip Studios and Photoshop. Photoshop got the whole suite. Clip Studios is on its own. Photoshop got the whole suite. And it looks like they kind of pushing you around, Medi Bang. Like, but for a little piece, I can help you out. I can protect you out here. I can show everyone what you can really do. I'm kind of doing it for free already, but I'm just getting in there. So, Medi Bang, we need to have a conversation, a real conversation. Holla at your boy. Somebody get the word to Medi Bang. Let them know I'm looking for him. All right? They need to get at me. All right? I'm not going to keep making these videos like this. You got me looking crazy out here. I don't like looking crazy, man. Don't make me come over there. I'll come over there. I need a vacation. I really do. I need to see something different. Okay? All right? Don't have me knocking on your doors. This shit is serious. All right? Peace. Let me get out of here talking crazy.